hours for EDH. Hey ho, it's time to sail with Mastering Commander.
Ahoy there, and welcome to Mastering Commander. My name is Matt, and today we'll be staying below decks, where we discuss a budget build for a commander optimized for fun and interesting gameplay. Today we'll be talking about Gavi, Nest Warden. Gavi lends herself to a deck focused on the cycling mechanic, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Our best games are going to see us cycling every turn and creating tokens, which will allow us to overwhelm our opponents with value and creatures by the end game. On the other hand, the deck's weakness is that it can take some time to get set up and get going, and if that's the case and you come under fire early, then you may not be able to get back into the game very effectively. With that said, let's take a closer look at what makes Gavi work. Gavi has two important abilities as a commander. First, she allows you to cycle one card each turn without paying its cycling cost. Note that this is for each turn, so you can use this ability on each other player's turn as well. Her second ability works well with this, since she'll create a 2/2 cat dinosaur token whenever you draw your second card for a turn. That's easy enough on your turn, since cycling once plus your draw step will get you there. But on other turns, you'll either need to cycle twice, or find another way to get that second card draw. Since you can cycle every turn, Gavi is effective at finding you some of the payoffs in the deck quickly. You may not have tutors, but you'll see plenty of cards as the game goes on. You even have some ways to take advantage of the cards you've already cycled away too. Let's go to the list to see how everything fits together. The deck splits well into a few different categories of cards. We have a few enablers, including Gavi, that will allow us to cycle many times each game. If you don't have any cards in your hand that you can cycle, your options are going to be very limited. After that, we have cycling payoffs, all of which will give us some advantage each time we cycle a card. On top of these, we also have draw and discard payoffs, which can be triggered by cycling as well. Every card in the deck is trying to work with your cycling engine, so that you can churn through the library and create a small army quickly once you have everything together. We're also playing cards that, while they do have cycling, can function as removal or protection if you need them at some point. This versatility is exactly what makes Gavi powerful as a commander. We have two primary enablers besides Gavi. New Perspectives is another way for us to cycle for free, without the restriction on how often we can do it. The catch is that we need a full hand, and it costs 6 mana, which isn't great since we aren't the best at accelerating mana. The other enabler is Tectonic Reformation. A surprising powerhouse, gives all of your lands the ability to cycle for 1 red mana. That may not sound too amazing, but lands are the most common cards to end up stuck in your hand in this deck, so having a way to add them to your engine is very helpful. Once you're cycling all these cards, you need to actually do something with it. Some of the cards in this deck get minor boosts from cycling, but I wanted to focus on the payoffs that are more likely to help win you the game once your engine is running. Lightning Rift will let you turn each cycle into 2 damage, a small amount that will add up quickly. You can use this to ping down your opponent's life totals, or to provide some much needed removal if you're beginning to get overrun. Drakehaven will similarly allow you to create 2/2 flyers, which combined with your cats from Gavi can close out games quickly. Astral Drift can flicker your creatures in and out, but more often than not, you'll be using this to protect you from opposing attackers, or to save Gavi when someone attempts to remove her. Speaking of removal, Zenith Flare more often than not just removes a player from the game once you have a full graveyard. Even someone who's only taken a small amount of damage will suffer a huge blow, and it'll keep you in the game with the life gain a lot longer than most of your opponents would expect. While you're there, casting an Abandoned Sarcophagus will allow you to regain some of the value from all those cards that you cycled away early in the game. You have many useful effects on your cycling cards, so playing this can effectively double or triple the number of spells you have available to cast in the late game. Moving on to your draw and discard payoffs, these fall into 3 major categories: damage, tokens, and threats. Glinthorn Buccaneer and Psychosis Crawler both put pressure on your opponent's life totals, pinging the table for 1 damage each time you discard or draw respectively. It's easy to get 5 damage out of these cards each round, which moves the game along nicely. If you'd rather be able to damage something else though, Ironcrag Pyromancer and Niv-Mizzet the Firemine will both turn your extra draws into damage that can keep creatures or planeswalkers in check as needed. Of course, they can always just dome someone in the face too. For tokens, we have a number of cards like Spirit Cairn and Improbable Alliance that will create tokens as you cycle through your deck. If that's not impressive enough though, Ominous Seas can start pumping out 8/8s if no one stops you. Or you can just cycle it away if the time isn't right. Finally, a few of our creatures can grow into their own threats very quickly. Brawlin and Shabraz work together well, but either is dangerous enough to draw some attention, as they'll grow quickly and give you damage and life along the way. Shabraz is particularly powerful since it already has flying on its own, and you tend to draw a few more cards than you discard even if you're cycling regularly. We also have Surly Badgersaur, which helps our mana issues and generally keeps the board clear of annoying little creatures as we cycle through our hand. He's an angry little badger. The rest of the deck is full of cycling cards, and each of those has an ability that may or may not be useful each game. It's going to be up to you to determine whether it's better for you to cycle a card away, or to save it to play and get its effect. The balance that you'll have to strike is that Gavi does need you to have a number of cards in your hand that you're willing to cycle away, in order to utilize her engines effectively. That said, sometimes an Akroma's Vengeance to wipe away everything is just what you need, and the fact that the deck can give you access to it pretty regularly makes it much more powerful than you would initially think. Before we get into our usual upgrades, I want to take a second to talk about the lands in this deck. We're running 3 different cycles of cycling lands, and all of them come into play tapped. While this is helpful for making sure the deck doesn't run out of steam later on, the fact is, this is going to slow you down earlier on. You're also a 3-color deck, which is difficult to make work on a low budget. If you're going to put some money into this deck to make it better, one of the biggest changes that you can do is to reduce the number of comes into play tapped lands within the deck. There are far better duels that are available with a little bit more money, and if you happen to have them in your collection, now's the time to break them out and see what this deck can really do once you don't have to wait an extra turn to get everything going. With that said, this deck is an extreme budget build, with a price tag of just under $22 by TCG Player Market. If you want to increase the power level of the deck though, there are plenty of options available to you. Under $5, we'll start with Teferi's Ageless Insight, which allows you to draw 2 cards instead of 1 every time you cycle a card. If you liked the ability of Astral Drift to protect you and your creatures, Astral Slide is another copy of the same effect. And if you're trying to end the game, the Locust God will create plenty of 1/1s in the air at a rate that your current token makers just can't quite match. We also have Riel the Everwise, who will allow us to draw extra cards every time we discard a card. Now, going over $5, Ifara God of the Polis has a perfect synergy with Gavi, allowing you to draw an extra card the turn after you create a cat token. That sets you up to be 1 cycle away from creating another cat token, which Gavi can do for free. Again and again and again, these two will work together to expand your board and try to give you 1 cat every turn, yours or your opponent's. Shark Typhoon is a perfect cycling card as well, with a great ability to create a flying shark when you cycle it, and also the ability to create more if you manage to land it on the board as an enchantment. And let's be honest, Shabraz was a little lonely being the only flying shark in the deck. Toothy Imaginary Friend fills another threat slot in the deck, and if he dies, you'll get to draw an extra card for each +1/+1 counter that you put on him from your previous draws. Teferi Master of Time also will allow you to get an extra draw every turn, and synergizes well with the rest of your draw and discard cards. Going over $10 though, we have Divine Visitation. This deck creates a lot of tokens, but few of them are as good as a 4/4 flyer. Divine Visitation will replace all of the ones that you're creating with those big angels that can finish the game much more quickly. And at the top of the price chain, we have Decree of Silence. If you cycle this card, it will counter 1 spell, which is fine. But if you play it, you can also counter the next 3 spells that your opponents cast. This card is a pain to play against, which is exactly why it belongs in your deck if you can afford it. And that does it for Gavi Nest Warden. Stick around until the end of the video to hear just how amazing Gavi is. But for now, did anything surprise you, or are there any cards that you feel like we cycled past too quickly? Let me know in the comments and we'll be glad to talk about it, or tell me what other decks you might want to see in the future. We're happy to continue putting these out, and I hope next week we're going to be able to do something really special with my local game store. But for now, that's it from me, Matt, and I wish you fair winds and following seas.
Gavi cycles cards for no mana cost, no mana cost, no mana cost.
Gavi cycles cards for no mana cost. No mana cost. No mana cost. Look and see, girl sitting there and up on her knee alive. It's a 2/2 token, red and white cat downer that she made for free. She can show you how to pitch a discard, she can show you how to draw again. All she wants to do, and it isn't too hard to draw, a second card so she can make a friend. She can find the thing that you're looking for, cycling every turn in a pot of 4. She knows if you're looking to give a hurtin', and trust she knows how to give it back and more. She and her cats can find a board wipe, she and her cats can find a fog. She can even find a shark bird, she can find anything that she wants. Cause look, Gavi cycles cards for no mana cost. No mana cost, no mana cost. Gavi cycles cards for no mana cost. No mana cost, no mana cost.